Hey everyone, this is Rochelle with Vrai, and today I'm so honored to be with John Jantsch. You might know him most from his book, Duct Tape Marketing. He has a plethora of books and an enterprise of businesses, and he has a new book, which we'll talk about at the end, that I'm super stoked about, and it's very timely for this point in our lives. So John, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and again, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, oh, you bet. Thank you. And I'm still trying to count up what a plethora of books is. I don't know how many that actually is, but it sounded great. So as you mentioned, I actually have a company called Duct Tape Marketing, and kind of going back my story, give you the 5-minute version. I right out of college, I actually went to work for an ad agency, did that for about 5 years, and just found that I wanted to do my own thing. I was restless. I didn't like having a boss. I think I'm certainly certifiably unemployable at this point. But I jumped out. I knew I could hustle work. I jumped out on my own and took a couple projects from big companies from friends of mine and people in my network, and with no plan at all, just like all entrepreneurs. And found that I could hustle work. I could kind of put together a business. I was learning certainly every day. But one thing that I learned pretty quickly is that I really liked, I got a couple small business clients, and I really liked working with them. I mean, it was fascinating. I hadn't really thought of myself as a small business owner at that point. I thought I was just kind of, figuring out how to make a living. And so I got involved in these small businesses, and I just fell in love with them. And there was something, I think, equal parts gratifying and terrifying from the fact that the person who you were doing the work for was actually going to write the check and maybe not be able to write a check for something else because they were paying you. And I got really hooked on that. But I also found small business owners kind of frustrating to work with, because I had done work with a lot of big companies, and there was budget. They had team members that could do things and be involved in things, but small business owners certainly didn't have the same budgets and not the same even attention spans, to really kind of do the work or get the work done in the way that I had been kind of learned to do it. And so I decided that at some point, if I was going to work with small business owners, I needed to create a very systematic way to work with them, where I could walk in and say, here was my sales pitch. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's what you're going to do. Here are the results we hope to get. And here's what it costs. You want it or not? Like the first 3 people that I gave that sales pitch to said, "Oh, how refreshing. Yes. When can we start?" So I think what I did was, in trying to solve my greatest frustration, I tapped into what is actually still today one of the greatest frustrations with small business owners. It's terribly difficult for business owners to buy marketing services because, first off, it's gotten seemingly much more complicated, but also there seems to be the new idea of the week and a new person selling that new idea of the week, every day. And so the idea that somebody would walk in and say, we're going to start with strategy, we're going to install a marketing system, and it's all going to work together, and you're going to know what it costs, was really music to their ears. And so I built a full practice. This is back before the turn of the century. I built a full practice myself, just locally. It became pretty apparent to me that the internet was going to be a thing, that people would actually maybe even buy products from people selling things on the internet. And so I decided that, I'd created this systematic approach, kind of almost turned marketing service into a product. And so that was really when I put the label Duct Tape Marketing on it. I wanted to have a more product kind of brand sound, because I was going to go out and sell that as a course online. And I found out, pretty quickly that name, really resonated. I mean, at least people were curious, which is, half the battle sometimes. So they wanted to know what that was, but it also really resonated with small business owners. And so, fast forward to today, I mean, I put that name on pretty much everything. I changed the name of my business. It started out literally as a product. And I changed the name, my business, my podcast, my blog, As you noted, I have a book called Duct Tape Marketing. I now have a network of independent marketing consultants around the world that license our methodology and our approach and collaborate together. And so, this idea, it floors me, to tell you the truth, that, I've been saying marketing is a system for 20 years, and it's still a very unique concept, even to a lot of marketers. And so, that point of view, I think if anything, obviously a lot of hustle, a lot of showing up, a lot of trying new things, but that idea of marketing as a system has probably been the single, greatest factor of, any success that I think I've achieved.
That's amazing. I love to hear how everybody starts, and you're right that we often start without a plan. We just know that we're passionate about something. And your passion has really helped a lot of other marketers build systems around their businesses because, like you, they want to be helpful and share their talents, but don't always know the step-by-step approach. And as marketers, I think we have to be flexible in our approach, but it's so nice to have a structure and a skeleton, some sort of framework. Now you have marketers who have licensed your methodology, correct?
Yeah, so we have about 150 members of the Duct Tape Marketing Consultant Network, and they are all independent, many solopreneurs, certainly a few small agencies, and they want to use our tools, they want to use our system, they want to be associated with our brand. But in the end, after they're in the network for about a year, the real value is the other people in the network, and the fact that they're all trying to do a similar thing. They're all doing it around a shared language. They're all doing it around a shared point of view, and maybe even to some degree a shared mission of really wanting to help small business owners. I think that's, a lot of times people ask me, well, how have you stayed doing this so long? And I think that I truly love small business owners. I love just the idea of it. I love the passion that goes into it. But I also see some pain and suffering and stress, about not, being able to accomplish what they want to accomplish. In fact, maybe getting the life sucked out of them sometimes by this small business. And so there certainly is a through line of kind of my work is this idea of also helping small business owners get their life back. And I think a lot of the people that are members of our network are very attracted to that idea as well.
Yeah, that balance, especially right now.
Yeah.
Before we started recording this, John and I were talking about what we're dealing with. He's at a different phase in his life where his kids are grown, and I'm an entrepreneur with 4 children. Everybody fighting for the Wi-Fi, and trying to find balance right now is really, really difficult. Finding structure within the business just takes some of the thought and stress out of it. If you're having to recreate the wheel every day, you're just adding more burden, unnecessary burden to yourself and to your clients. So, and I imagine, well, tell me, what are you hearing from your affiliate marketers? What are they saying?
Well, the thing about any change, there are people that view it very differently. I mean, there certainly are industries, types of businesses that, are facing a tsunami. I mean, are getting wiped out. They're barely hanging on. I mean, and I realize that that's out there. And I feel for those folks. But there's certainly a lot of businesses also that I won't say they're prepared for this. Nobody prepared for this, but they've worked and built a stable brand, and in many cases want to hang on to that. And have really, kind of looked at it and said, okay, let's roll up our sleeves, figure out what we have to do now to get closer to our customers, to shift our thinking, to maybe narrow our thinking, to what we're trying to accomplish. And so as marketers, if you were in the wrong industry, I guess, in some ways it's a lottery. If you were in the wrong industry, it's been very difficult. But there are a lot of industries that I won't say they've thrived, but they're looking to marketing to say, hey, let's keep the oars going. Let's keep the boat moving, forward. And a lot of people realize that marketing is in its many forms is a way to accomplish that. And so I would say that a good number of the businesses that our consultants work with are actually looking to expand and do things. We've had a surge in people joining our network. And I think it has to do with just the idea that anytime there's a major shift, people move, people change, people who have been sitting on the fence, decide, now it's time, it's time to make a change. And so again, it is almost a roll of the dice in terms of, who and how that happened, but there certainly are people, just as there are people suffering, there are people that are, taking action for when we come out of this.
What resources might you have for the non-marketer, just the entrepreneurs out there who are just saying, I need a starting point. I want to clean it up. I want to get an idea of where I want to go, and then maybe bring on a consultant.
Sure. What resources? Well, I don't even know how to simplify that to an answer.
Read the book.
Well, yeah, whether it's my book or, I could probably, if I thought about it long enough, come up with a list of, 10 books, but, books are probably the best deal out there. I mean, you can get somebody's entire thinking and entire approach and entire, kind of practical checklist of things to do, for, I don't know, $10, $12 a lot of times. And, a lot of times people will spend thousands of dollars on courses that they never use or do anything with. And, a book, in many cases is the same content that you would encounter there. The key is really just is taking action. I'll tell you the advice I've been giving to a lot of people, regardless of the situation they're in. I mean, it's tough if you're starting a business now. I don't know what I'd tell you, but for folks that have been in business, a lot of folks are thinking, okay, what's my pivot? What's my innovation, that I can create so that I can, come out of this. And that may work for some businesses. That may be the right call for some businesses. I'm actually telling a lot of business owners that I've been speaking with to actually think smaller. Now's the time to actually look at your top clients, your top 20% of your business, and say, okay, what do we do that they love? How can we do it better? And how can we find more of them? I think a lot of times the real tendency is to just go, oh, we need business. And so you just start chasing after anybody who hints that they might pay you. And I think that that's a recipe for, it may be a short-term recipe for, hey, we've got to pay the bills, which I get. But in terms of growth and how we come out of this thing, what I'd be thinking is, how can we make sure that our best customers are so thrilled with us that they're willing to tell anybody else who is like them what we have? How can we find ways to actually serve them better, get closer to them? And that's, that in some cases that may not generate, immediate revenue. But I can almost guarantee you that in the long term, that will build a better business.
I think that's excellent advice. It's really difficult. It takes such a discipline to hone in on what your vision is for your life, work it into your business, and learn to say no. But you can't say no unless you're really laser focused on what you want, what you're good at, and what's going to keep you motivated and pay the bills, because it has to go hand in hand. I, for one, have had the whole entrepreneurial burnout. I've been through just such a crash of just when you have to let go of the business that you built, and try to redefine yourself because you lost focus. In the end, that was the issue. If I had only stayed focused on the true vision, I really think I would have eliminated a lot of stress, including hiring the wrong people, growing too fast, taking on more capital than you need to. And I think right now there are a lot of quick fixes coming at people with, take this loan, again, short term, but you got to think about how you're going to pay that off. So it's better just to stay really diligent and disciplined and lean on what you're really, really great at. So I love that advice. Think small. Think small actually is.
Well, that's actually what I've been telling people. Think smaller. It doesn't sound terribly innovative, but it's probably the right move. And, I think a lot of people, and of course, when you've been, up and down, you've seen up and downs, you've had successes and failures, you learn some of these lessons. But I think a lot of that stress that entrepreneurs feel is out of comparison. Sometimes they look at what other people are doing and they think, well, that's what I should do. Or how come I haven't, once they achieve a level of success, is how come I'm not as successful as that person? And I think that, that's of course, that's a journey that gets you nowhere. And so I think if what a lot of people I think are doing, especially when you get this kind of this time to pause or this major shift, I think it does have a lot of people questioning, what have I been spending my time on? And, I'm not going back to that, and focusing on kind of, this is all I need, this is all I want. How can I do that in a way that brings me joy and happiness?
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. And that's a great segue into, we talked about kind of the next phase of your life and where you're at right now. And you had some time to innovate yourself and put some thoughts into words and create this magnificent book that's inspiring. And it was a really important project to you, I know, and you did a lot of research for it. So why don't you talk a little bit about that, and then we can
Yes.
share it.
So you're talking about my newest book called The Self-Reliant Entrepreneur, and it's actually my sixth book. And in some ways, it came about kind of from two different fronts. It came about from probably a 20-year journey that I've gone on in my own self-development. But it also came about because I found I was kind of at a point where I was a little burned out. A lot of times authors write a book and it's like, well, what's the next book? And I was a little burned out on writing about marketing. And so I wanted to do something that was just a different project completely for myself in a lot of ways, but obviously to share my 30-year journey, I guess, as an entrepreneur with other entrepreneurs as well. And so I chose the format of a daily devotional, which is a pretty proven format. There are a lot of books out there, even going back, Tolstoy actually wrote one. Excuse me. And so the idea is that every day you pick it up, and every calendar day of the year, there is a new page. And so it's a pretty quick, simple idea, move on to the next, move on to your day, or move on to the next page. I anchored each day in writing from the mid-19th century authors. So think Thoreau and Emerson and Margaret Fuller and Louisa May Alcott. And if you think about what was going on in that time in America, at least in the 1850s, we were on the cusp of the Civil War. Women were first starting now to make noise about getting the right to vote. We were trying to abolish the legal act of human slavery. And so it was kind of the first counterculture period in America. And some of the writers and preachers and people like Emerson and Thoreau were overtly saying, hey, maybe we don't need to listen to our elders or our parents or our teachers or our preachers or politicians. Maybe what we're meant to do is follow what's in our heart and follow our own unique path. And even the fiction from that time period, it was the first time you started seeing protagonists like in Scarlet Letter and Moby Dick, even in the works of Twain, where the protagonist, essentially said, hey, this may cost me everything, but I have to follow my heart. And I just think that that's, till today, 150 years later, tremendous, tremendous advice for entrepreneurs. And so I curated about 400 different passages from probably 50 or 60 authors from that period. And so every day you get a little snippet of something that I felt fit on a theme, and then for that day and that month, and then 150 to 200 words of maybe me contextualizing it, or at least telling you my view of it. And then I leave you every day with what I call a challenge question. So something that I hope relates to what you had just read, but also hopefully plants a little bit of a seed. You don't necessarily answer one of these questions every day. I know some people send me notes of what they'd answered each day, but I also hear from people quite often that tell me that it just kind of sits with them all day, and they find that even if they don't have an answer for it, it helps them start witnessing, what's going on in their day, and being more mindful of what's going on in their day around that particular question. It's more of a practice than a book, I think. It's not something you take on vacation and sit on. I don't know where you go on vacation these days, but sit somewhere. Vacation is the garage, maybe, I don't know, and sit somewhere and read it. But it's something that that you come back to every day. And I know a lot of people, journal, a lot of people meditate, a lot of people, have a practice, a morning practice of, doing something that inspires them. And so it was those are all things that I have done for years. And so it kind of fit into that practice for me. It's definitely not a marketing book. It doesn't tell you how to do anything, I don't think. It maybe tells you, why to do some things though.
Well, I think it helps us be mindful leaders.
Yeah.
For me, it really helps center. And I mean, there's a little mindful leader right on the front.
That's right.
It's great. So we're going to end the recording with Story Time by Jantsch.
Okay.
And John is going to read today's passage. We're recording this on May 7th. And I love the title. It's called Beautiful Compensation.
Yeah. So yeah, every day starts with a title, then a reading from this one's a short little clip from Emerson, and then my words, and then the question. So beautiful compensation. It is one of the beautiful compensations of life that no one can sincerely try to help another without helping themselves. It's Ralph Waldo Emerson from his first series of essays, which included Self-Reliance. Today's reading goes directly to the heart of things like service, sacrifice, and selflessness. Emerson, like many of the transcendentalist thinkers, fully subscribed to the idea that all human beings were interconnected by a force of energy that flowed through acts of giving and receiving. And so in effect, this reading can include a practical and potentially self-serving bonus idea. Giving isn't always the act of charity it's made out to be. It's often done in a self-centered fit, albeit an enlightened one. Random acts of kindness, a belief in service for the benefit of others, a dedication to helping those in need, all very good things for those on the receiving end, compensate the giver just as fully. Committing to a focus on helping another is the ultimate accounting hack. So your challenge question today is, who could you give a gift to today?
I love it. I just think it's just such a thought-provoking way to start my day. And, I've told you this before, but you're such a gift. You shared your talents and your thoughts, and your dreams became a reality, which became a gift for other people to carry it through. So for me, you've already given the gift today, and I'm sure you've done that to so many others. And I'll continue to think about how I can show up in whatever way is helpful for other people. And I really, truly hope that this docuseries is doing that. If we just encourage or inspire one entrepreneur out there, that's my dream. So thank you for being a part of it, John. Everyone, make sure to go out and get this book, The Self-Reliant Entrepreneur. It is fantastic, and you can't live without it. Thanks, John.
Yeah.